everything, defending that crop from people who would steal it from wolves and everything else. He was used to being in the fire. So when he came to the army, facing the Philistine giant was just one more thing for him to do. He was already a young warrior, tested in the fire. When you are tested in the fire, will you burn up? All steel must go through the fire. All best good steel must go to the fire to be defined down to its greatest element. So when it's stretched, it will stand the test. What are you? What are you? The pit or the palace each day, and be happy sometimes God have you in the pit, because that's when you can get yourself together. Sometime when God take everything from you, that is when you make your greatest progress. Ask Abraham when he had to leave where he was. Ask Joseph when he had to take Jesus into Egypt. The pit or the palace is a question for you today. Are you ready for which one? Sometimes with God, be content where you are with God. Sometimes you sit on the side of the mountain at the Kidron Brook and have a raven to feed you. Sometimes you go through this with God. You have to trust God. If your things aren't working today, that's okay. You're not there by yourself. God is with you. And God will send who and what you need when you talk to Him. You'll have a Pharaoh sitting in the palace with a call down for a man like Joseph. Are you Joseph? Have you stood the test of time? Have you studied well enough? Have you worked well enough? Have you done the things you're supposed to do to be ready? Can you put on the whole armor of God, but then you put on the helmet of truth? Can you gird up your loins with the sword of righteousness on your side and say, I'm ready to fight. I'm on with Christian soldier up in. I'm ready to step out this door. I will fight war with Satan. I will fight war with death, hell, and the grave. Pit or palace, that's the question for you today. What are you ready for? What are you ready for? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That was David talking. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you hear that? Those are strong words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? We gloss over these words so fast that we don't understand that David's complete trust was in God. When he was in the wilderness, his trust was in God. When he was fighting Goliath, his trust was in God. When he was playing music for Saul, his king, and he decided to throw a javelin at him and try to kill him, his trust was in God. When he had to flee the palace and run off to the wilderness, put together a bunch of ragged, rounded people out there and make them into a ragtag army that he won a lot of victories with, his trust was in God. And so we'd like to sit out there and repeat this Psalms without understanding what the man meant that wrote that Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That was born out of pain. That was born out of suffering. It was not born out of good times. What do you say? What do you say when you're in the pit? Can you find God in the pit and ride God's word up out that pit and stand the hurdles of life? It's not sometimes the destination. It is the journey. Sometimes the journey of your life is more important than the destination. I don't want to have to tell you that I had to leave that little cold water apartment. And the life that I had to lead and the struggles I had with raising children and going back to school and everything else I had to do, what then was after my little happiness. Time to go back to the pit. If you're in the pit of your life, it's okay. God is there too. God is right there. When you start talking to him, he'll let you know why he got you in that pit, why you're there. I've been in the pit of many a day, and the only person who was in that pit with me was God. I didn't like what God was telling me sometimes, and you won't either. Sometimes God was telling me where I was wrong. Sometimes you can be right and wrong at the same time. You can be right in your opinion, but you're wrong in the way you're doing it. You're right in what you want to do. You're wrong in how you was doing it. You're wrong in what you were saying. You're right in what you're saying. You're wrong in who you're saying it to. Pit or palace. I'm glad I'm not the president of this United States with all the things we got going now. I don't even think in my wildest dreams that I'm tough enough, not learned enough, or my walk with God is that strong, because God did not anoint me with that. And I struggle sometimes even to where I am. So I don't tell God to put me somewhere else, because he knows where I should be. And he's going to put me where and what he's prepared for me. I pray for our president. I pray for our Congress. I pray for our local leaders. And I pray for the people who are voting. And I think you should do the same. And you should be honest in your appraisals. I'm not a politician. My politics is standing to God. God is in charge of us all. He's in charge of the president. He's in charge of the Congress. He's in charge of everybody. Now, if you want to know who I trust, I just told you. I just told you who I trust. God has a way of making us see the error of our ways. And then he says a popular thing that we keep saying that we forget as soon as we say it. If those who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray. Oh no, we're not going to finish that. We ain't going to do it like that. Because when we throw this thing together, it glosses over us. And turn. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, we just thought you just prayed. We gloss over the next thing. And turn from their wicked ways. Then I will hear from heaven and heal their land. Then I will hear from heaven and heal their land. Then I will hear from heaven. Now watch this. From the time of the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve decided to rebel against God in this Garden of Eden, whether you believe it or not, man has free will, and then God tells you, what you loose on earth, I will loose in heaven. Now you better think about that. If you lose hatred on earth, remember you're your little God. Then it's going to be multiplied. The seeds you sow, you will reap. Think about that. God is telling you what you loose on earth, He will loose in heaven. You are making the decisions about your pit or your palace every day. And most of it is done with your tongue. Loose murder on earth, God said, I'll loose it for you in heaven because He gave you free will. Think about what you're saying. Loose thieving on earth, and everybody becomes a thief. In place of the commandment of God telling you, thou shalt not steal. In place of God telling you, thou shalt not kill. But somebody tells you to have a reason to walk into a schoolhouse and kill up their fellow students. Where on your doorpost did you have this 10 Commandments? Where in your school did you have this 10 Commandments? Where'd you have it? We're going to head up out of here, and I'm going to keep talking while you're doing this, because I'm on a roll talking to me too. When I walk around now that all the places have got everything on, every sign in the world, except these 10 Commandments, and you wonder why you have the problems you have, the seeds you sow, the seeds you sow, the seeds that you sow. You're putting a pit in the minds of the people you're raising. You're putting a pit in the minds of the people that you're talking to. You're putting a pit in the minds of the people you're leading. You're putting a pit in their minds. Pit or palace? That is the question. Pit or palace? That is the question.